this is the age of eternal fury, and so often when we're determining what we're going to do, what we expect to accomplish, we lose a real important cog in this overall machinery, and that is our individual capacity. I hope I never get conned into doing something that I would never be capable of doing. Rick, when we get to the point of making goals, I hope I never decide that I want to be a toe dancer. I hope I never have visions of doing something that I'm not capable. It seems extremely important for us to recognize our individual capacity for doing things, for doing all sorts of jobs. I got a big kick in San Francisco the other day of listening to a man stand up before a group of refrigerator salesmen, and he said, man, I'm getting tired of you fellows. We get the people in there. We have our advertising program. We've got a newspaper campaign, magazines. We've got billboards. We've got television. We've got radio. We bring them into the store, and what do? Stand there. Sell them! I said, let me tell you guys something. What's the biggest objection you have to mine? Well, one little guy ventured up a hand about this high. He said, they usually say they just looking around. Looking around! All right, I got an answer for that. Now, he said, let me tell you something, friend. When you have a customer come into your store, here's what you do. Just as when they come in mine, the woman comes in, she looks around. She looks at this refrigerator, she looks at that refrigerator, she sees one she likes, and I go over and I do my dead level best to sell her. If I fail to sell her and she says, I'm just looking around. He said, I say to her, that's all right, Mrs. Smith. Of course you should look around. We want you to look around. We think we have the finest refrigerators under the sun. We think this will do the job for you. We think you will be happy. You'll love our payment plans. You'll be so proud of this box. Look around. Perfectly all right. But Mrs. Smith, before you go, you know, we're so glad you thought of us when you thought of buying a refrigerator. And because you came to us first, we want to give you a little present. And he said, I'll reach up in the freezing compartment, pull out a half a gallon of ice cream, and give it to her. Now, he said, I ask you, how in the hell much looking around do you think she's going to do carrying a half gallon of ice cream? Our own individual capacity usually will not apply itself to that kind of a stunt in selling. It just doesn't fit us at all. It might fit this guy in San Francisco, but it might not apply to us. And it seems so important that we recognize our individual capacity and we use the things that fit into our framework of getting the job done. And then number 3, as I have grown older, my sense of values have changed. My attitude, my individual capacity, and I like to think I have a little mature thinking take place occasionally. And I believe all of us should. So frequently in making decisions about our future and how we expect to operate, we do not thoroughly consider the circumstances at hand. We normally, by impulse, vote in one direction or another. We like it or we don't like it. We want it or we don't want it. And that's the extent of evaluating this particular aspect as it applies to us. Not long ago, I was on a plane from Chicago out to Omaha. And the man on the plane with me is a man that many of you know. He's mayor of Kansas City. We were both going out there to conduct a program. And when we got on the plane, he said, Charlie, you sit over by the window. Now, those of you know him who know, you know he weighs over 300 pounds. He's a great big man, about 6'6". And when he told me to get by the window, I learned later what he had in mind. He was going to sit in the aisle and the aisle seat. And he got in by me, and we started out. And right away, I had the opportunity to do something that is so rare to me. I had the privilege of recommending to somebody else that they lose weight. So I wrote him pretty hard. I said, Mayor, why don't you lose some weight? Well, he said, tonight we get out to Omaha, I'll tell you about this thing. When we got out to Omaha that night, the thing was over. We went into the restaurant. Sat down, he said, I want to tell you. I'm over 70 years old. I'll admit to weighing over 350 pounds. Now on page 34 in the book, it says I should have kicked the bucket a long time ago, right? I said, that's right. It says it on 2 or 3 pages. Well, he said, I'm still kicking around. Why do you figure that is? Well, I said, I don't know, but there must be some reason. And he said, I think there is. He said, Charlie, I think there is medical value in what I'm about to tell you. And he said, I think that businessmen around the country can profit by thinking about this. He said, I have never been angry at anyone in my whole life. And he said, right now, they're running a medical history on me because I have buried 6 doctors. And each doctor has told me shortly before that if I didn't lose 50 pounds, I was going to die. And he said, they're running a little history on me, and they went out and talked to my wife, and she said, I've been married to him for 35 years. I've never seen him angry. They went down to City Hall in Kansas City. They have never seen him angry. None of the employees, none of the people in the entire area. And he said, I think it's extremely important. Well, I got to thinking about that as it applies to you and to me in our selling job. Anger. You and I go out in the morning, we call on an individual, we make up our mind in the very beginning whether he's kidding us or not kidding us. We crucify him right on the spot. We stand there with a smile on our face and say, boy, I wish I had a dagger, I'd let you have it. You dirty bum, you! I know what you're up to. And all of this turmoil is going on inside of us, and then we say, wonder what's wrong? What's taking place? I think mature thinking plays a great big point. But just assume that you agree with me up to this point. What have we got? Well, we've got attitude. We've got individual capacity. And we have mature thinking. And that adds up to A-I-M. Aim. Well, isn't that what Rick was saying? You got to have a goal. Sure, you got to have a goal. That's what he said. A-I-M. But I'd like to talk to you about that. I have never in my whole life seen anywhere under the sun a target, whether it be an archery, target practice from a pistol standpoint or a rifle standpoint. I have never seen a target that had just one little dot in the center. They have that little dot, and then they have a circle around it. And then around this circle, there is a larger circle. And then around this circle, there is an even larger circle. And then finally, there is an even larger circle. And if you hit anywhere on the board, you score. You don't have to hit the dot every time. You can hit up here, and you can hit here, or you can hit here, or here. And you can compile a pretty good score. Now, maybe as you go on, as you increase your individual capacity, as you develop your mature judgment, then maybe you can bring this thing in closer. And then all of a sudden you realize that there's a dot in the middle that you like above all else, and that's the one you want to hit. And then you have the equipment, and you have your changing attitude, and these things all bring themselves into play, and you can hit that dot in the middle. Or maybe you will never want to hit that dot. Maybe some of these other things are satisfactory for you. But don't get upset and don't get distraught because you don't hit that little dot in the middle, because there's a score on the whole board. I think you should take aim, but let's look at it and let's study it more thoroughly. Now, as I said to you earlier, I think this is the age of eternal fury that is causing a lot of us to be confused, and we're missing our objectives, and we're not accomplishing the things that we'd like to accomplish. Why? Why, more specifically than has been covered up to this point, can't we do the things that we want to do in routine fashion? But I'd like to point out some of the reasons why we can't do it. You and I fail, and we learned this from 18,000 salesmen. You and I fail, number one, because of the little elementary factor, we fail to follow through. look what happens to you. You've come into this meeting today. You've heard all of the speakers that you're going to hear all day long. You've exchanged ideas, which is wonderful for you. You've gotten ideas here and there all day long. And you're going to hear a fine speech tonight at the banquet. And then you go home. Maybe you go to Regina. Maybe you go, we have several people here from Toronto. But when you go home, somebody says, "Hello, Joe, how are you?" "Fine." "Here you been down to Winnipeg, attending the meeting?" "Yes." "Good one?" "It really was." "You learn a lot?" "Yeah." "What are you going to do about it?" "Nothing." We simply fail to follow through. Maybe you heard about the fellow who won a 2-week trip to Mexico City. He's been down there 3 months now trying to win a trip back. Somebody failed to follow through. Now, remembering that many of you in this room have many responsibilities beyond your job. You have church responsibilities. You have civic responsibilities. You have a considerable number of activities outside of your job. I'd like to pass on this little bit of information to you. Don't get to the point where you're overcommitted. 1 year, I served as president of the Kiwanis Club, president of the City and County Adult Education Council, member of the board for the National Conference of Christians and Jews, head of 2 or 3 different small campaigns, and on the boards of about 5 different organizations, and I came darn close to starving to death that year. I simply could not say no. They'd say, "Charlie, will you help us?" "I'll be glad to. Be glad to." And I got involved. I'll never do that again. Well, first of all, I won't do it because, you see, I couldn't follow through. And everybody hated me by the time the year was over. They hated me in every organization. I had not done the job. I couldn't. And now I've got a good little system for this. Each year I take one major activity, whether it be church or civic, and then I take one minor. And I do my dead level best on those. And then I say no to everybody else. And this has been the finest little formula that I've ever had. I can do a good job with one major civic or church activity, and I can do a good job on one minor church or civic activity and still run my job. And then I say truthfully no to everybody else. Because, you see, if I don't do that, I become a liar. Somebody calls me up, as they may have you, and you want to lie to them. They say, "Joe, we'd like for you to help us next week. Next Thursday, to be exact." And you say, "Well, I would like to, Herman, but you see, next Thursday, oh, that's the day that they're going to take my wife in to have her examined." Now, you don't say that this is for glasses. You just tell them that. But you think that maybe he might find out, so you fortify it. You say, "Oh, I would like to, but you know we're building a new plant. And I think that next Thursday is the day I am supposed to be there about the new materials." And maybe you'll give another reason for not doing something. My friends, I wish that we could all make a little rule that unless we plan to lie, one reason is enough. That's all we need. Just one. And when we give 2 and 3 and 4 for doing or not doing anything, usually we're about to let somebody have both barrels. We're going to tell them a whopper. But this all comes because we fail to follow up. So many things could be accomplished if you and I would simply walk out of here today and say, "By golly, one thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to overcommit myself. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to handle the prospects I can handle, and I'm going to follow through on it. That would be just wonderful. Because your progress, your health, your happiness, the whole thing would take on an entirely new light to you. Because when you just do the things that you can intelligently follow through on, everything seems to fall into place. Number two, why do we fail? We fail because of the word adaptability. You and I are living in this age of eternal fury where everything is taking place rapidly. So many changes are taking place. We've got a brand new industry. With this industry we call research. We spend billions and billions of dollars on it, coming up with new ideas, new products, new ways of doing things. And every time one of these things comes around, you and I must adapt to the way it has affected our life. What a change has taken place in the lives of every one of us. Tomorrow, I'll have the privilege of jumping on a plane and flying over to Vancouver, and I know what wonderful airline service you have and what a quick little trip it is over there. How rapidly you cross the country. It's just amazing. It's astounding. And yet when this new speed came about, it affected the lives of every one of us, and we had to adapt to a new and changing circumstance. And so it is with your company. In order to remain progressive, your company must come up with a brand new bookkeeping system, a new record system, and they'll say to you, Joe, we've got to have a brand new report from you every day. We're throwing away the old one. We're going to have the new one. And you say, new one? I just learned to make out the old one. You don't like it. We've got to learn to adapt to new and changing circumstances. You know, a little boy walked into the army. He was the very bottom of the ladder. He said, where do you want me to go? And they said, go over to the motor pool. And he walked in the motor pool, and when he got there was not a thing in the world but vehicles, a little desk, and a telephone. There was no one around to tell him what to do, so he sat down. In the Army, you learn that immediately, sit down. And the phone rang. Well, he knew what to do then. He picked the thing up, and he said, hello. Now, this happened to represent everything that he knew about the motor pool. He had no way of knowing that the voice on the other end was that of the commanding general. But the voice said, how many vehicles do we have in the motor pool? Well, the boy didn't know anything to do but count. He said, we got 16 big trucks. We got 11 little trucks. We got 14 motorcycles. And we got 24 Cadillacs. And the boy said, 24 Cadillacs? He said, yes, boy. He said, that's for them big fat generals to ride around in. And the voice on the other end said, do you know who you're talking to? He said, oh, no. But he said, you happen to be talking to Commanding General Lucius B. Smith, Commanding General of this installation. And the boy said, boss, you know who you talking to? He said, no, I don't, but I want to know. He said, goodbye, big fat general. We must learn to adapt. I doubt if there's anything in this room that's going to be so significant to every person is in the years ahead, you're constantly going to be called on to change. This is the age of constant change. Don't fight it. Expect it. Learn to move with it. Learn to be promoted and to base your future on a changing type way of doing business. Number 3, why do we fail? We fail because of the word disappointment. Disappointment. We like to talk about your attitude and what it means to have a good attitude to go out and sell, but why can't we all have a good attitude? You take the prettiest little baby or the ugliest little baby, and they're just as lovely as they can be, smile from ear to ear, bless their little hearts. They're not mad at anybody. They're in a perfect humor. But then all of a sudden they grow up and they have bad attitudes, and we keep talking about what happens to an attitude. Why does it become bad? Well, we found that you and I become so doggone upset because of disappointment that it sometimes just ruins our attitude for Sally. We can't take it. Why, we know we're going to be promoted, but we don't get it. We know we're going to get a raise. Why, that new car would naturally come to me. It is supposed to come to my territory. How come he got it? Oh, what this does mean to us. I'd like to tell you one little thing. A boy walked into the very first grade and sat down on the first row in a new school. This little boy was in the first grade because he had never been away from Mama before. He was 6 years old. It was time to go to school, and they set him down. And there he was. Now the teacher came down the line routinely taking the names of all the youngsters. She got to this little boy and said, "Hi," and he said, "Hi." She said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Damn it, Jones." Now she said, "There'll be none of that. You're in school now. What is your name?" He said, "Damn it, Jones." Well, the teacher dashed out of the room in the principal's office, picked up the phone, called the little boy's mother, said, "Mrs. Jones, what is your little boy's name?" Well, she said, "It's Damn it." Said, "See, that's an old family name. And we have 16 children. We've never given it to one of our children. We decided to give it to this one. That's his name. We spell it D-A-M-M-E-T-T. The teacher thanked her profusely, hung up the phone, went back in the room, and she explained this to the other kids. She said, "Now, normally, there's just a little bad connotation to this word, damn it, but in this case, this is his name. Henceforth, you call him that." Of course, she's wasting her time. You see. Kids had no problem at all. They'd say, "Hi, damn it, hello, damn it." Everything worked fine. One day the superintendent of schools came through, and he was so proud of this new building and the fact that every seat was filled, and he stood up like a peacock surveying his domain, and he looked all over the room, and finally he decided to make contact. He looked down at the little boy and said, "Hi, hi. How you getting along?" "Fine." "Learn anything?" "Yes, sir." "What have you learned today, for example?" "Well, I learned to spell Constantinople." And the teacher ran over. She said, "Now, damn it, you know you can't spell Constantinople." And the superintendent said, "Well, hell, let him try." You see, he did not want this kid disappointed. He knew he couldn't take it. Can you take it? What about it? Can you take it? I'd like to tell you quickly that at one time I was working, and I mentioned this job to you earlier. I was working down here in Evansville, Indiana. I had led the organization in sales. I knew doggone well I was going to be promoted. There was a promotion coming. I was waiting for it. I walked into the meeting, and I was grinning from ear to ear. I knew I was it. You know, let's face it, here's success. Look me over, boys, here I am. So I waited for the meeting to start, and it did. And I waited for him to announce the name of the man to be promoted, and it did. It was another guy. I was never so disappointed in my whole life. I had told every friend that I have. I had taken giant steps toward spending the money. It was just a formality we were going through. Well, I didn't know what to do, but I thought I'll just quit. And I would have, too, if I'd have found another job. I was never so disappointed in my whole life. It almost ruined me. And you know what happened? I stayed with that organization, and 6 months later, I was promoted to vice president. This fellow had just gotten a stinking little promotion. Well, I got to be vice president, the biggest promotion I'd ever had in my life. I was proud as a peacock, but I almost blew the whole thing. If somebody had come along and offered me another job, I'd say, let's go, boy, let's go. Explain the details to me later. I was disappointed. They'd hurt my pride. I can't take that sort of thing. Can you? How does it shake you up? Why do we fail? Number 4, you and I fail because of the word sophistication. We get to the point where we think we know all there is to be known, and we're so doggone proud, and we think, isn't it too tough that the peons don't know? I ought to know. Been with this company long enough. Oh, we love to feel sophisticated. There's something about our makeup that causes us to want to know more than other people. You know, usually I work entirely with men. But last year in one big department store we had 800 ladies in a series of classes. Now, you ladies, we love you. We just think you're wonderful. But you know, fellas, we know by actual record it takes the average salesman 2 years to become sophisticated on a job. He goes along fine until about 2 years, and then he begins to know all the routine. He begins to know all there is to be known. And he gets to the point where he thinks, well, I know the whole business. One boy in New Orleans admitted to me that he threw away a $100 bonus check. He thought it was a bulletin from the company. He said, I never read those things. I've been in the company too long. I know what they say. Pay attention to them. It takes 2 years normally. But these ladies, oh boy, they learned it in 2 weeks. And you know, the ladies do something that you and I do, and we're just as guilty as they. We get to the point where we think that it is chic, fashionable, the latest thing to goof off. And you know, it's an amazing thing. We think we're the first that thought of it. And so we begin to figure out the system. And somewhere along the line, we decided if you can beat the system, that proves something. We're not sure what. Well, these gals in the department store figured out now if they could loaf a little more, they'd have the system beat. And in their advanced planning, they determined right away that you don't sit down behind a counter in a department store. The things are not built right. They're too long. People can see you. And they're apt to holler, what are you doing down there? Get me a box while you're under there. And number 2, they learn not to go in the stock room. You see, it seems there are wolves roving through there, you know. And they're apt to get nipped anytime. Well, don't do that. Now, these ladies had figured it out. If they wanted to loaf, the thing to do was to go to the ladies' restroom. Now, I'm not being facetious. This is a great big reason for loss of many, many hours. They would go to the ladies' restroom. Now, this had a lot of merit. Got a lot of sound reasoning behind it. You see, if they were on the way and met the boss, he'd say, where are you going? Well, I'm going to the ladies' restroom. Well, let's stop that conversation. He's not going to say you can't go. So that took care of that. They go down into the ladies' restroom and stay. Too many trips, too long. Only one department store manager came up with a reasonable solution to this problem. He put a little loudspeaker in there. And he'd shout through this thing, smile, girls, you're on TV. He said it really shook him up. I hope you will take a little time to analyze how you arrived at your plan of selling, how you develop your attitude and what goes into your attitude. Do you feel that you have gotten to the place where you know about all there is to be known about your job, about your business, about your community, and about your city? Are you just pretty much willing to accept the thing and say, huh, I've been there? Of all of the star salesmen that I've met in your country and in the States, they all seem to have one thing in common. Getting back to something that I mentioned earlier, they give it everything they've got. And they never get to the point where they think they know all there is to be known. They're looking for new ideas, new methods, new ways of doing things, keeping their minds constantly alert for a new and better and improving way. And in that fashion, they become bigger and better all the time. Sophistication. Now, my friends, I'm just about to conclude this part of the program. And again, I would like to refer to something that we discussed this morning, and I call it the easy way to sell. Excitement, audacity, showmanship, and the you factor. Now, as you know, this is the emotional. This is the go-get-em aspect of selling. This is for the ambitious, come on, let's go out and get 'em approach to the thing. We're building it on excitement, audacity, showmanship, and the you factor. But then there comes a time when every one of us must stop and think and perhaps take aim. Take aim by determining our attitude, what we're going to do, how we're going to treat people, what we're going to expect by our effort. We're going to take a little time to ascertain our own individual capacities. Are we inclined toward the job, capable of doing it, qualified for it? Do we like it? Will we have that old desire once we take it on? And then we're going to temper all of these things with mature judgment. We're going to analyze things as intelligent people and see how they apply to us and to other people. And then again, I would give you that qualified recommendation, qualified in deference to Rick, about the goal. Instead of a goal, make it a purpose. And when you take AIM, put those three things together and give your selling a purpose as opposed to a temporary goal. And then in order to ensure the fact that you can do these things, that you can follow through and really accomplish it, remember four other things. FADS. Follow through. Don't commit yourself beyond your capacity to see the thing through to a successful conclusion. Whether it be church, civic, or your job, be sure that you are not overcommitted. Adapt to new and changing circumstances. You in your wonderful country of Canada, in your great city of Winnipeg, you're taking giant strides. You're going to accomplish so doggone much. But remember, it's going to require that every one of you adapt all of the time, as it will me. All of us must constantly adapt to a changing world. Then watch disappointment. It's coming. You may get it today, tomorrow, next week. It may come from your church, may come from your school, may come from your wife, may even come from your youngsters. You expect them to do something else. They didn't do it. Why? But maybe it'll come from your job. Maybe you won't get the pay, the promotion. But disappointment's coming, and it'll come rather regularly, and you've got to be ready for it. And then there's that last one, sophistication. You got to keep this old thing open to receive ideas and evaluate them, and never get to the point where you think you can close the door and say this is it, because you never reach that point. I'd like to feel like that when I came down here today, that I made a little tiny contribution, And if I ever come back, I'd like you to look down the street and say, "Hello, Charlie, good to see you." I'd like to feel that way, and I think you will if you'll put these things to work. Wonderful to be with you. Thank you. You're a great audience. Thank you.